Chapter 4. Herondale lay on the floor, stretched at his father's feet upon a carpet woven in a design of golden birds and twining plants with blue flowers. His head was propped upon his hands. His father sat upon his carved chair, his hands laid motionless upon either arm of it, his eyes looking into the fire that burned bright upon the hearth. It was not cold, but the fire that was named the heart of the house, Amen, burned ever in that room. It was moreover a protection against the night, which already men had begun to fear. But cool air came in through the window, sweet and flower-scented. Through it could be seen, beyond the dark spires of still trees, the western ocean, silver under the moon, that was now swiftly following the sun to the gardens of the gods. In the night silence, Elendil's words fell softly. As he spoke, he listened as if to another that told a tale long forgotten. There is Iluvatar, the one, and there are the powers of whom the eldest in the thought of Iluvatar was Alcar the Radiant, and there are the firstborn of earth, the Eldar who perish not while the world lasts. And there are also the afterborn mortal men, who are the children of Iluvatar, and yet under the rule of the lords. Iluvatar designed the world and revealed his design to the powers, and of these some he said to be Valar, lords of the world and governors of the things that are therein. But Alcar, who had journeyed alone in the void before the world, seeking to be free, desired the world to be a kingdom unto himself. Therefore he descended into it like a falling fire, and he made war upon the lords his brethren. But they established their mansions in the west, in Valinor, and shut him out. And they gave battle to him in the north, and they bound him, and the world had peace and grew exceeding fair. After a great age it came to pass that Alcar sued for pardon, and he made submission unto Manwë, lord of the powers, and was set free. But he plotted against his brethren, and he deceived the firstborn that dwelt in Valinor, so that many rebelled and were exiled from the blessed realm. And Alcar destroyed the lights of Valinor and fled into the night. And he became a spirit dark and terrible and was called Morgoth, and he established his dominion in Middle-earth. But the Valar made the moon for the firstborn and the sun for men, to confound the darkness of the enemy. And in that time, at the rising of the sun, the afterborn, who are men, came forth in the east of the world, but they fell under the shadow of the enemy. In those days the exiles of the firstborn made war upon Morgoth, and 3 houses of the fathers of men were joined unto the firstborn, the house of Beor, and the house of Haleth, and the house of Hador. For these houses were not subject to Morgoth, but Morgoth had the victory and brought all to ruin. Arundel was son of Tor, son of Hor, son of Gunlin, son of Hador, and his mother was of the firstborn, daughter of Turgon, last king of the exiles. He set forth upon the great sea, and he came at last unto the realm of the lords, and the mountains of the west. And he renounced there all whom he loved, his wife and his child, and all his kindred, whether of the firstborn of men, and he stripped himself. And he surrendered himself unto Manwë, lord of the west, and he made submission and supplication to him. And he was taken and came never again among men. But the lords had pity, and they sent forth their power, and war was renewed in the north, and the earth was broken, but Morgoth was overthrown. And the lords put him forth into the void without. And they recalled the exiles of the firstborn, and pardoned them, and such as returned dwell since in bliss in Erisea, the lonely isle, which is Avalon, for it is within sight of Valinor and the light of the blessed realm. And for the men of the 3 houses, they made Vinya, the new land, west of Middle-earth in the midst of the great sea, and named it Andor, the land of gifts. And they endowed the land, and all that lived thereon with good beyond other lands of mortals. But in Middle-earth dwelt lesser men, who knew not the lords, nor the firstborn save by rumor, and among them were some who had served Morgoth of old, and were accursed. And there were evil things also upon earth made by Morgoth in the days of his dominion, demons, and dragons, and mockeries of the creatures of Iluvatar. And there too lay hid many of his servants, spirits of evil, whom his will governed still, though his presence was not among them. And of these Sauron was the chief, and his power grew. Wherefore the lot of men in Middle-earth was evil, for the firstborn, that remained among them faded or departed into the west, and their kindred, the men of Numenor, were afar and came only to their coasts in ships that crossed the great sea. But Sauron learned of the ships of Andor, and he feared them lest free men should become lords of Middle-earth and deliver their kindred, and moved by the will of Morgoth he plotted to destroy Andor and ruin, if he might, Avalon and Valinor. But why should we be deceived and become the tools of his will? It was not he, but Manwë the Fair, Lord of the West, that endowed us with our riches. Our wisdom cometh from the Lord, and from the firstborn that see them face to face, and we have grown to be higher and greater than others of our race, those who served Morgoth of old. We have knowledge, power, and life stronger than they. We are not yet fallen, wherefore the dominion of the world is ours, or shall be, from Airsail to the east. More can no mortals have. Save to escape from death, said Herondale, lifting his face to his father's, and from sameness. They say that Valinor, where the lords dwell, has no further bounds. They say not truly, for all things in the world have an end, since the world itself is bounded, that it may not be void. But death is not decreed by the lords. It is a gift of the one, and a gift which in the wearing of time even the lords of the west shall envy. So the wise of old have said, and though we can perhaps no longer understand that word, at least we have wisdom enough to know that we cannot escape unless to a worse fate. But the decree that we of Numenor shall not set foot upon the shores of the immortal or walk in their land, that is only a decree of Manwë and his brethren. Why should we not? The air there giveth enduring life, they say. Maybe it doth, said Elendil, and maybe it is, but the air which those need who already have enduring life. To us perhaps it is death or madness. But why should we not say it? The Airsails go thither, and our mariners in the old days used to sojourn in Airsail without hurt. The Airsails are not as we. They have not the gift of death. But what doth it profit to debate the governance of the world? All certainty is lost. Is it not sung that the earth was made for us, but we cannot unmake it? And if we like it not, we may remember that we shall leave it. Do not the firstborn call us the guests? See what the spirit of unquiet has already wrought. Here, when I was young, there was no evil of mine. Death came late and without utter pain and weariness. From our sands we obtained so many things of beauty that our land became well nigh as fair as theirs, and may be fair to mortal hearts. It is said that of the lords themselves will walk at times in the gardens that we named for them. There we set their images fashioned by Airsails, who have beheld them as the pictures of friends beloved. There were no temples in this land, but on the mountain we spoke to the one who hath no image. It was a holy place, untouched by mortal art, and Sauron came. We had long heard rumor of him from seamen returned from the east. The tales differed. Some said he was a king greater than the king of Numenor, some said he was one of the powers, or their offspring said to govern Middle-earth. A few reported that he was an evil spirit. Perchance Morgoth returned, but at these we laughed. It seemed that rumors came also to him of us. It is not many years, 3 12s and 8, but it seems many since he came hither. Though we're a small child, and knew not then what was happening in the east of this land, far from our western house. Tarkalion, the king, was moved by rumors of Sauron, and sent forth a mission to discover what truth was in the mariners' tales. Many counselors dissuaded him. My father told me, and he was one of them, that those who were wisest and had most knowledge of the west had messages from the lords warning them to beware. For the Lord said that Sauron would work evil, but he would not come hither unless he were summoned. Tarkalion was grown proud, and brooked no power in Middle-earth greater than his own. Therefore the ships were sent, and Sauron was summoned to do homage. Guards were set at the haven of Morionde, in the east of the land, where the rocks are dark, watching at the king's command without ceasing for the ship's return. It was night, but there was a bright moon. They descried ships far off, and they seemed to be sailing west at a speed greater than a storm, though there was little wind. Suddenly the sea became unquiet. It rose until it became like a mountain, and it rolled upon the land. The ships were lifted up and cast far inland, and lay in the fields. Upon that ship which was cast highest and stood dry upon a hill, there was a man, or one in man's shape, but greater than any even of the race of Numenor in stature. he stood upon the rock and said, "This is done as a sign of power, for I am Sauron the mighty, servant of the strong." Wherein he spoke darkly, "I have come. Be glad, men of Numenor, for I will take thy king to be my king, and the world shall be given into his hand." And it seemed to men that Sauron was great, and though they feared the light of his eyes, to many he appeared fair, to others terrible, but to some evil. But they led him to the king, and he was humble before Tarkalion. And behold what hath happened since, step by step. At first he revealed only secrets of craft, and taught the making of many things powerful and wonderful, and they seemed good. Our ships go now without the wind, and many are made of metal that sheareth hidden rocks, and they sink not in calm or storm, but they are no longer fair to look upon. Our towers grow ever stronger and climb ever higher, but beauty they leave behind upon earth. We who have no foes are embattled with impregnable fortresses, and mostly on the west. Our arms are multiplied as if for an age-long war, and men are ceasing to give love or care to the making of other things for use or delight. But our shields are impenetrable, our swords cannot be withstood, our darts are like thunder and pass over leagues unerring. Where are our enemies? We have begun to slay one another, for Numenor now seems narrow, that was so large. Men covet, therefore, the lands that other families have long possessed. They fret as men in chains. Wherefore Sauron hath preached deliverance, he hath bidden our king to stretch forth his hand to empire. Yesterday it was over the east, tomorrow it will be over the west. We had no temples, but now the mountain is despoiled. Its trees are felled, and it stands naked, and upon its summit there is a temple. It is of marble, and of gold, and of glass and steel, and is wonderful but terrible. No man prayeth there, it waiteth. For long Sauron did not name his master by the name that from old is accursed here. He spoke at first of the strong one, of the eldest power, of the master. But now he speaketh openly of Alcar of Morgoth. He hath prophesied his return. The temple is to be his house. Numenor is to be the seat of the world's dominion. Meanwhile Sauron dwelleth there. He surveys our land from the mountain and is risen above the king, even proud Tarkalion, of the line chosen by the lords, the seed of Arendelle. Yet Morgoth cometh not, but his shadow hath come. It lieth upon the hearts and minds of men. It is between them and the sun, and all that is beneath it. Is there a shadow? Said Arendelle. I have not seen it, but I have heard others speak of it, and they say it is a shadow of death. But Sauron did not bring that. He promised that he will save us from it. There is a shadow, but it is a shadow of the fear of death and the shadow of greed. But there's also a shadow of darker evil. We no longer see our king. His displeasure falleth on men, and they go out. They are in the evening, and in the morning they are not. The open is insecure, walls are dangerous. Even by the heart of the house spies may sit. And there are prisons and chambers underground. There are torments, and there are evil rites. The woods at night once were fair. Men would roam and sleep there for delight, when thou wert a babe, are filled now with horror. Even our gardens are not wholly clean, after the sun has fallen. And now even by day smoke riseth from the temple. Flowers and grass are withered where it fall. The old songs are forgotten or altered, twisted into other meanings. Yeah, that one learneth day by day, said Arendelle. But some of the new songs are strong and heartening. Yet now I hear that some counsel us to abandon the old tongue. They say we shall leave Erisand and revive the ancestral speech of men. Sauron teacheth it. In this at least I think he doth not well. Sauron deceiveth us doubly. For men learn speech of the firstborn, and therefore if we should verily go back to the beginnings, we should find not the broken dialects of the wild men, nor the simple speech of our fathers, but the tongue of the firstborn. But the Erisand is of all the tongues of the firstborn the fairest, and they use it and converse with the lords, and it linketh their varied kindreds one to another, and them to us. If we forsake it, we should be sundered from them, and be impoverished. Doubtless that is what he intendeth, but there is no end to his malice. Listen now, Arendelle, and mark well. The time is nigh when all this evil shall bear bitter fruit, if it be not cut down. Shall we wait until the fruit be ripe, or hew the tree and cast it into the fire. Herondale got suddenly to his feet and went to the window. "It is cold, father," he said, "and the moon is gone. I trust the garden is empty. The trees grow too near the house." He drew a heavy embroidered cloth across the window and then returned, crouching by the fire as if smitten by a sudden chill. Elendil leaned forward in his chair and continued in a lowered voice, "The king and queen grow old, though all know it not, for they are seldom seen. They ask where is the undying life that Sauron promised them if they would build a temple for Morgoth. The temple is built, but they are grown old. But Sauron foresaw this, and I hear already the whispers gone forth, that he declared that Morgoth's bounty is restrained by the lords and cannot be fulfilled while they bar the way. To win life, Tarkalion must win the west. We see now the purpose of the towers and weapons. War is already being talked of, though they do not name the enemy. But I tell thee, it is known to many that the war will go west to Erisea and beyond. Dost thou perceive the extremity of our peril and the madness of the king? Yet this doom draws swiftly near. Our ships are recalled from the corners of the earth. Hast thou not marked and wondered that so many are absent, especially of the younger folk, and in the south and west of our land both works and pastimes languish? In a secret haven to the north there is a building and forging that hath been reported to me by trusty messengers." "Reported to thee? What dost thou mean, father?" asked Herondale as if in fear. "Even what I say. Why dost thou look on me so strangely? Dost thou think the son of Elendil, chief of the wise men of Numenor, will be deceived by the lies of a servant of Morgoth? I will not break faith with the king, nor do I purpose anything to his hurt. The house of Arendelle hath my allegiance while I live. But if I must choose between Sauron and Manwë, then all else must come after. I will not bow unto Sauron, nor to his master. But thou speakest as if thou wert a leader in this matter. Woe is me, for I love thee, and thou swearest allegiance. It will not save thee from the peril of treason. Even to dispraise Sauron is held rebellious. I am a leader, my son, and I have counted the peril both for myself and for thee and all whom I love. I do what is right and my right to do, but I cannot conceal it longer from thee. Thou must choose between thy father and Sauron, but I give thee freedom of choice and lay on thee no obedience as to a father. If I have not convinced thy mind and heart, thou shalt be free to stay or go, yea, even to report as may seem good to thee all that I have said. But if thou stayest and learnest more, which will involve closer counsels and other names than mine, then thou wilt be bound in honor to hold thy peace, come what may. Wilt thou stay?" "Atrenia Timalani," said Herondale suddenly, and clasping his father's knees, he laid his head there and wept. "It is an evil hour that putteth such a choice on thee," said his father, laying a hand on his head. "But fate calleth some to be men betimes. What dost thou say?" "I stay, father."